Wow, that's a good looking background. It's the first time I've seen it. Just sat down, looking good today, ladies and gentlemen. Another barn burner of a show, and I'm glad to see that Donald Trump ads are running on my channel here. That's great stuff. Glad to see that. I'm all for it. But at any rate, ladies and gentlemen, we will move beyond that. We're going to talk about today inventing Jesus. Was Christ Caesar's Messiah? I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. We're here to help you guide your own spirit, master your own ascension, and be your own guru, reminding you you're divine, you're sovereign, and you're free, and you don't have original sin. You got the spark of divinity within. We're going to break into today, starting my analysis of the book, Caesar's Messiah, by Joseph Atwill. And it'll be a nice warm-up because on Monday at 2 p.m., the man himself, Joseph Atwill, will be with us, and he'll be here to discuss his groundbreaking work. It really is an amazing book, and it's just amazing what's going on. And it's so nice to see all of you filing into the chat room as I enjoy my warm tea after my cold plunge. Right back at you, Xavier. Nice to see you here. So let me go ahead and pull up my Word document because we try to be professional here. Jameis says, so if you gave someone a Mistech bracelet and didn't disclose its power to them, would they notice a change? Of course they would. They would, whether they would recognize in their mind or not, I don't know, but yeah, of course they would. The entire New Testament was written in pro-Roman fashion. And Philip, I'm glad you said that because every time I think I know what's going on, I find out that there's stuff going on that I don't know. Every time I think I know what's going on, I find out there's stuff going on that I didn't know. And it is so incredible. I'm getting into the New Testament, and oh my, I mean, the Gospels were written by Rome. Who wrote the rest of the New Testament and why? I tell you what, this is going to be such an amazing and exciting year. And I've got to be frank with you. After 38 plus years of doing this, I did kind of get to the place where I thought, okay, I've seen it all. I've done it all. I've got a pretty good handle on it. I don't. It is deeper and wider and more interesting than you can ever imagine. And you won't have to imagine because we're going to be bringing it out. Joe Bay says the bracelets work. He bought one after seeing the science behind it. Well, you see, I believe in them. I wear them constantly 24/7, 365. We're talking about the Mistech bracelets. You can view them at jeffreydaugherty.com. Just click on the Mistech tab or the Mistech logo. You get a full 20%, ladies and gentlemen, a full 20% off when you order through my website. And they're just great stuff. They put you at the Schumann resonance. Somebody was talking today about what the Schumann resonance was. Doesn't matter what the Schumann resonance is because these bracelets restore you to the natural Schumann resonance of the planet. And they put your cells back into harmony instead of chaos. I wear some that are targeted to specific reasons, like this one has the silver, colloidal silver, and I've got also copper, yeah, double tithe savings. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, take it, use it, jeffreydaugherty.com, 20% off. If you can't find what you want on jeffreydaugherty.com, you can go to mistech.net, come back to jeffreydaugherty.com if you want the 20% discount, and you know that you do. So let's go ahead and pull up my Word document here, and let's dive into inventing Jesus. Is Christ Caesar's Messiah? And I think you're going to be really surprised at what we see and what we learn and what we read. And I'm going to show it to some of you. I don't usually show you reading things. I don't usually show you books and then read them to you. But I want you to see that I'm not just making up data here. The first thing you have to know, and the first thing that you have to admit, and it's very, very hard for people to admit this, and I understand why it's very, very hard. for people to admit this, but you've got to admit, you've got to know, you've got to come to grips with the fact. And it is a fact, and facts are stubborn things. I know that some of you don't like to deal with them, but the fact is, ladies and gentlemen, there is no archaeological evidence that Jesus ever existed. I'll go further. There's no definitive physical or archaeological evidence of the existence of Jesus. There's nothing conclusive. Of course, I'm reading from the Encyclopedia Britannica. I'll show you this. And it says things that are way understated, but we'll show you what they say anyway. And we'll try to move this over so you don't have to actually watch the chat. But anyway, this is from the Encyclopedia Britannica. Documentary evidence outside the New Testament of Jesus is limited. And historian Flavius Josephus wrote one of the earliest non-biblical accounts of Jesus. The earliest account, 93 AD. That's probably 100 years after he was dead and gone, if in fact he did exist. Now, let's look at what Encyclopedia Britannica says about the existence of Jesus. And we'll look into what I think. I used to be in the business of proving that Jesus existed. And I'll give you the things that I thought were the three best proofs, and these really are the only proofs that are out there. We're talking about the invention of Jesus. Was Christ Caesar's Messiah? And on Monday at 2 p.m. Central, we're going to have Joe Atwill, the author of Caesar's Messiah. And I'm the author of Apostle Paul Antichrist. And between us, I think we've got it covered until we uncover stuff that we didn't know that needed to be covered. You know how it is. That's the work of an investigative reporter. Jesus appears in the annals of Imperial Rome, a first century history of the Roman Empire written around 116. Remember, 116 is over 100 years after Jesus would have lived and died, by the Roman senator and historian Tacitus. He chronicled the burning of Rome in 64. He said that Nero falsely blamed the persons commonly called Christians who were hated for their enormities. Christus, the founder of the name, was put to death by Pontius Pilate, procurator of Judea, in the reign of Tiberius. A couple of things scream out. Pilate was not procurator. That was not his title. That was not his job. For your homework, you can look up and see what he really was. And would Tacitus misquote the name or the job of Pilate? I don't think that he would. There's other things involved in this passage that does show evidence of tampering, and it doesn't contain any source. Most scholars feel like Tacitus, who didn't go to Rome or didn't go to Judea during the time of Christ, wasn't there. Most people, most scholars that are objective and empirical believe that Tacitus was reporting what he heard from Christians. It was like the whistleblower, only we know who this and we don't even know who the whistleblower was. Tacitus heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend who heard it from another, that Pilate had been messing around, and he didn't even get Pilate's job right. So one of the best proofs, quote unquote, of Jesus being a historical figure shows serious tampering, contains no source. Here's another one. The Roman governor Pliny. You've heard of Pliny the Younger. You've heard of Pliny the Elder. He wrote to Emperor Trajan that the Christians would sing hymns to Christ as a god. Sounds pretty good. Again, it's late. It's 110. It's 100 years or so after Christ would have lived and died. But in other writings of Pliny, and you can do this for your homework, he demonstrated that he didn't even know the difference between Judaism and Christianity. And at worst, the passage has become corrupted. At best, the guy wasn't really sure what he was talking about. And we're talking about the best of the evidences of a historical Jesus. And this is the one right here that I think actually is the best. It's the Marabar-Scipion letter. And I think it's best because it's not trying to prove anything. It just kind of throws it out there in a broader discussion of religion. But this is what the Marabar-Scipion letter says. And I always have trouble with that name. I don't know why. Marabar-Scipion letter. What advantage did the Athenians gain from putting Socrates to death? Famine, plague upon them as a judgment for their crime. What advantage did the men of Samos have for burning Pythagoras? In a moment, their land was covered with sand. What advantage did the Jews gain from executing their wise king? We're not sure it's Jesus. And the Jews didn't executing, the Romans did. But it might have been, for their kingdom was established after that. God justly avenged these three wise men. The Athenians died of hunger. The Samians were overwhelmed by the sea, and the Jews were ruined and driven from their land, and they live in complete dispersion. It's unknown. That sounds good. That's the strongest one, in my opinion. It's unknown when Marabon Serapion lived. It's unknown whether he had been an eyewitness to Jesus. Most say no. We don't really know when he wrote the letter. At a minimum, he wrote over 40 years after the crucifixion. And he could have witnessed it or he could not have witnessed it. But here's what even Bible scholars say about what I think is the best evidence and proof for the existence of Jesus. Conservative scholar F.F. Bruce, he's a Bible scholar. He states that in all likelihood, the Barsippian letter was written later than AD 73. And he doesn't know how much later. That means it's old. It's old. Some even, other researchers, dated to the 2nd or even 3rd centuries. It could have been 200-300 years after Jesus supposedly lived and died that this letter was written. Other problems again with the letter. It wasn't the Jews that crucified allegedly Jesus. It was the Romans. Barsippian's choice of words is inexplicable. Again, unless we assume that he received his information from Christians. He doesn't provide independent confirmation, and many have concluded, as I have, that he's merely parroting Christians. That letter also contains other errors. Pythagoras had been killed by countrymen, yet he really wasn't killed by countrymen. Even apologists McDowell and Wilson, Bible apologists, admit that Mara Barserapian's information about Athens and Samos is inaccurate. Even apologists holding is forced to admit that this reference to Jesus is not particularly valuable, ladies and gentlemen. I spent at least 25 years believing and trying to prove that Jesus was real. I actually spent probably at least 30 years trying to prove that Jesus was real, because cognitive dissonance is a real thing and it's a tough thing to deal with, because your confirmation bias is extremely difficult to break. You learn something, you're taught something, your culture teaches something, and you automatically want to believe it, you defend it, and it takes a lot of time, in my case, over 30 years, to gain anything that remotely resembles objectivity. It's a tough road an indoctrination is, and it's not for the faint of heart. It's only for the hardy. It's only for the few, the proud, not the Marines, but the unindoctrinated. So even though this is hard information, the objective mind, the empirical mind will allow themselves to go there, will consider it, and will weigh it out. And when you do, I think that you find, like I found, even after giving 2 decades, almost a quarter century of my life to the propagation of the Jesus myth, now stand back and realize that it was not true, and it is not true. In addition to the fact that there's no historical, anthropological, impartial, empirical, objective evidence about the Jesus being an actual person, Atwill, in his book, Caesar's Messiah, brings up a great point. He says that he finds it very hard to believe, and I find it impossible to believe anthropologically And I find it impossible to believe as an investigative journalist, researcher in the biblical scriptures. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the best in the world at what I do. I'm the only one in the world that does what I do. And with apologies to Chris Jericho, I am le champion of biblical interpretation and exegesis. And as le champion, I stand ready to debate all challengers, but you will not come, for you do not want to be defeated. I know how it is. But Atwill finds it hard to believe, and I'm quoting from him now, that at the exact time when the followers of Jesus were purportedly organizing themselves into a religion that urged them to turn the other cheek and to give Caesar what is Caesar's, that there was another Judean sect raging religious war against the Romans. Anthropologically, that does not happen, especially in a populace as concentrated and, remember, under military occupation as the Jews were under the Romans. It is as close to an anthropological impossibility as it can be. Well, Jeff, what do you know about anthropology? I have an associate's degree with a major in anthropology. What do you got? I'll wait. What do you got? You asked. I answered. It is as close to an anthropological impossibility, and it is an anthropological absurdity, that there would be within a confined, under military occupation populace, relatively small as the Jews were in Judea, that there would simultaneously be one sect of note that was saying, turn the other cheek, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, don't resist Rome. They're the servants of God to us, like Paul was saying. While at the same time, there was a group called the Sicarii, by the way, that were waging religious war against the Romans. They were killing Romans. They were attacking Romans. They were doing all sorts of violence towards Rome. Why do you think Titus marched into Jerusalem to destroy Jerusalem and the temple? Why would he have done that if they really had been preaching, oh, just turn the other cheek, give to Caesar what is Caesar's? You don't send a legion to attack people that are saying, give Caesar what is Caesar's. You don't send legions upon legions to go attack a people that are turning the other cheek. No, you send legions to attack a populace that is characterized by this group called the Sicarii, who also believed in a Messiah, but not one of peace, not one of pacifism. The Sicarii Messiah wasn't turning the other cheek. The Sicarii Messiah was not giving anything to Caesar. They expected this Messiah to lead them militarily against Rome and to lead them to military victory against Rome. Listen to what I say with your head, not with your emotions. I've been where you are. I've done what you're doing. I came out the other side. I'm not particularly smart. If I can do it, you can do it. It is historically implausible. It is an anthropological absurdity, as close as something can be to an anthropological impossibility, because there's really not such a thing. We can be surprised that two diametrically opposed forms of Jewish messianism would spring up simultaneously within the same population, especially when one of them escapes the notice of empirical objective history completely. It's one thing to say, oh, yes, they did. They could have militant Judaism and pacifist Judaism at the same time. Well, then all of the pacifist messianists must have been stupid and ignorant, because none of them ever wrote anything. None of them ever built any statues. None of them ever scratched anything on a rock. We have historical evidence of the Sicarii. We have historical evidence of those trying to lead military revolt, and it's called the smoldering remains of Jerusalem, for one. What we don't have is proof. We don't have any empirical objective evidence of this supposed Jesus movement in Rome in the first century. Only one of these groups, between the militant messianics and the pacifist messianics, only one of them is recorded in the historical record. And then Atwill did something that is just brilliant. What he did was he turned to the three leading documents from that historical era to get as much information as he could. He looked at the Wars of the Jews by Flavius Josephus. He looked at the Dead Sea Scrolls, and he looked at the New Testament. Ladies and gentlemen, this is called scholarship. I'm studying an era of history. I want to be objective about this era of history. I want to be empirical about this era of history. I want to know what the main players in that era thought, believed. I want to know as close as possible what was going on. So let's see, it was the Romans. Who was the Roman historian? Flavius Josephus. We'll talk about that. Let me read his work, The Wars of the Jews. Who was the supposedly the Christians deal? Okay, well, I'll read the New Testament. And then I'll read the Dead Sea Scrolls as well, because it supposedly contains a more holistic and inclusive look. That's called scholarship, ladies and gentlemen. It's not the same as going to a building and having a guy in a dress or a $5,000 suit tell you what to believe, and you say, okay, this is different. This is called scholarship. It's a little unheard of these days. So I'm trying to explain it to you in detail so you'll know what it really, really means. And when Atwill was reading the Wars of the Jews and the New Testament side by side, again, that's scholarship. You look at the New Testament, you compare it to Wars of the Jews. You look at Wars of the Jews, you compare it to the New Testament. I've done this myself. That's why I'm so respectful of it. You got this book side by side, and all of a sudden, Atwill started seeing a pattern. He saw a pattern, he saw a connection that events in the ministry of Jesus seemed to closely parallel events in the military campaign of Titus Flavius as he subdued Jerusalem and Judea. Think about that. Jesus is here doing this at this place at this time. Well, that's weird because Titus was here doing the same thing at the same place at the same time. That's weird. Once it's weird. Okay, here he is again. Jesus is same place. Titus, same place. Same time, same time. Now you got two. That's curious. And then when you get down to the third, where'd Jesus go next? Oh, Titus went to the same place. What'd Jesus do next? Oh, Titus did the same thing. It's a pattern then. And only an objective empirical mind that's looking at literature for literature's sake, someone that doesn't have a confirmation bias, knowing what they believe and trying to find proof of it, that's not research. You people on YouTube that call yourselves researchers, come on, man. You might as well be calling yourself astronauts, because you're no closer to being a researcher than you are to being an astronaut. When you go and search, when you have an idea in mind, Jesus is real. The Bible's the word of God. Jesus is the only way to be saved. When you start with that, you have left scholarship. When you say Jesus is God, you're no longer a scholar. Because a scholar would say, is Jesus God? The New Testament is the word of God. That's not a scholar. A scholar says, is the New Testament the word of God? Let's look at it objectively. Let's look at it empirically. So when you proceed from a belief like, I'm touching on third rails. I might as well grab this one. Everybody's a tranny. And then you start looking at pictures and you're looking for proof that everybody's a tranny instead of being objective about it. Or you should never eat meat or you're a horrible person. You start looking at the evidence through a preconceived notion. That's called confirmation bias. So as he looked at the New Testament and as he looked at the Wars of the Jews, the conclusion that Atwill reached was, and I share this after reading the book, that the Flavians, the imperial family, actually created Christianity, and within the Gospels incorporated a satire of the Jews, and also put it in the wars of the Jews to inform posterity. That means people that are about to come for you Christians. That means people in the future. And it's just amazing stuff. The Romans invented Jesus, made him up as part of a satire of the Jews. And I'm telling you, if you watch these programs, there's going to be a few of them as we go through the book, you will have no choice but to admit, damn, we've been fooled. And remember, it's easier to fool somebody than it is to convince them that they've been fooled, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop trying. And when I started thinking back, I don't know how long it's been, 6, 7 years, maybe 8. I don't know how long it's been. When I was starting to write Apostle Paul Antichrist, like Atwill, I had studied all that literature, but I still had a confirmation bias that Atwill didn't have. But I still knew there's something wrong about the New Testament. It didn't add up. I saw the same symptoms that Joe Atwill saw, but my diagnosis fell short of a full cure because I still had confirmation bias. Fun facts that support Atwill's diagnosis and mine now. The Flavian dynasty lasted from about 60 to about 100 AD, which just happens to be the exact time frame where the vast majority of scholars, including yours truly, believe that the Gospels were written. Just happened to be written during the reign of the Flavian dynasty. And guess what? They were also written during the time that Wars of the Jews was being written. And by the way, did you notice the guy's name? Flavius Josephus? Flavian dynasty. Does that ring a bell? Well, it should, because Josephus was an adopted member of the imperial family and was the official historian of the Flavian Rome. So let me get this straight. The New Testament was written, Wars of the Jews was written during the Flavian dynasty by guys that were the historical recorders of the Flavian dynasty. But oh no, the New Testament is different. Really? Folks, the overwhelming thought of Jesus as a historical figure has kept us, let me rephrase it. The overwhelming tree of believing that Jesus was a historical figure has prevented us from being able to see the forest of what grew in first century Judea. Our confirmation bias makes it difficult. Our spiritual Stockholm syndrome makes it difficult. Our cognitive dissonance makes it difficult. And it's hard to see because it was written to be hard to see. How many of you have ever asked the question, why did Jesus say only those with ears to hear and only those with eyes to see? If Jesus was supposed to be telling everybody the truth so they could get saved, why was he making everything so much of a riddle and a puzzle? Because Jesus was created by Rome, and Rome's telling you only those with eyes to see, only those with ears to hear are going to know what's really going on here. Rome wanted to fool the world, and they did. And later, they wanted to let the world know that they fooled them. And now we are. Rome not only wanted to fool you, they wanted to say down the road, ha, I told you so. And what Rome has done the exact same thing that the Jesuits have done. Do you think, there might be a link? There could be a link there. Rome has done exactly what the Jesuits did. Wonder if there's a connection. What are you talking about the Jesuits for, Jeff? The Jesuits took their brand of eschatology, which was brand new, and flew end time studies, last days studies, your head chopping tribulation, Antichrist. I almost said a bad word. Bad doctrine that you can't get enough of. It's like crack. You can't snort enough of it. You can't shoot enough of it. You can't smoke enough of it. You can't drink enough of it. You are hooked on prophecy. You are prophecy junkies. It's Jesuit. They made it. The Jesuits were the pimp, not the pimps. The Jesuits were the dealers. They're the ones that made it. And they created it when everybody else that knew anything about the scriptures knew that they were wrong. But now, a few hundred years later, all the Protestants are preaching Jesuit doctrine that was invented in the Counter-Reformation. It's amazing. And now Rome created a Messiah to fool the world into worshiping the Roman emperor. And they wrote it in a form so later they would be able to point at you and laugh and say, ha, we told you so. Well, I'm in the we told you so business. And that business is a booming. This is true. This is real. This is tight. This is right. You may not like it. It may interfere with your presuppositions. It might upset your little tummies, but it is right. It is real. It is true. And whether you decide to believe truth or hang on to error is up to you, ladies and gentlemen. I can bring you to water. I can't make you drink. I can bring you to objective empirical evidence, but I can't make you think. Early evidence says, yes, Jesus was invented. Early evidence says, yes, Christ was Caesar's Messiah. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower, and it looks like an open and shut case. Keep and stay tuned for even more, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to the chat room and let's see what people have to say. I want to remind you that one of the, I have some secret weapons. Mystech is one of my secret weapons. So is Fluffy, Focus, Life Force Energy. Go to jeffreydaugherty.com, click on the Fluffy, FLFE logo. You can get up to 30 days, 15 on your phone, 15 on your home, of having the experience of a more nurturing environment. Robert, USN vet, was in the house yesterday. He says, I like coming here. I can feel the Fluffy when I get here. It's real. It works. It is life-changing. Make sure you click on the logo. And while you're there, it's great to get unindoctrinated, but why stink while you're being unindoctrinated? It's great to be unindoctrinated, but it's not great to be unindoctrinated and stinky. Click on the Hero Soap logo. Great soap, organic soap, helping veterans, made by veterans. Let freedom clean. Why have your soul in good shape and your hiney smelly? No reason for that. Click on the Hero Soap logo. So let's see what we got going on in the chat room. Two Tree says, thank the gods for Mystech. I do. Let's see. If you give someone, we already went over that. Let's see. I concur. And people are still wanting. I love you guys. This is why you're here. You already saw the video that showed from blood work that Mystech has a dramatic effect. And Tracy still wants to put it to the test. That's why she is who she is. And that's why we're such good friends. Because she's empirical. She's objective. She wants to see some proof. And so do I, ladies and gentlemen. Joy says that she thinks it's worth every penny. Michelle says Mystech makes your hair look amazing. I don't know if it has to do with that, but yeah. Thank you anyway. My friends think I'm crazy, says Toth777. Well, if this world thinks you're crazy, you are probably one of the sanest people that I know. Joe says, now only if you only had my company as your CBD sponsor. Well, I'm getting ready to change CBD sponsors, Joe. And I think I found the best one, but I'm willing to listen. Let's see what else we got. The Shroud is not proof of, the Shroud is proof of the J-Man, Nancy. I have to take exception with you. The Shroud is proof of the J-Man. It is the Shroud of the J-Man. The J-Man did die in the Shroud, and the J-Man is, the Shroud is proof of the J-Man, but not the J-Man you're thinking. Jacques, which starts with a J, de Molay. So yeah, the Shroud is proof of the J-Man, but not the J-Man that you were thinking about. Yeah, Jesus exists in your heart, just like a demon. Jeff, how can you say that? Folks, anywhere else that you say, I sold my soul, I got covered in his blood, I accepted a human sacrifice, and now since that's all my soul, I'm going to live forever. Anywhere else you would do that, demon, possession. But just because you did it in a place called church, all of a sudden it's holy. Really? Do you really believe that? Anyway. Joe Atwill, yep, he is a great guest. But Scotty found Jesus on a potato chip. Wow, good for you, bro. Good for you. What do you think about the Romans refitting Serapis Christus to Jesus Christus? That's an interesting theory, but we have proof that they just made Jesus out of whole cloth, and I'm going to be sharing that with you over the coming days and weeks. Let's see what else we got. Do you think that when we seek guidance, guidance comes to us in a form we can conceive of? Deborah, I don't know if you want to know what I really think happens when you seek guidance. Because when you seek guidance and you verbally seek it beyond yourself and not from your higher self, I think you open yourself up to a world of creepy crawlies, a world of imposters, a world of deceivers. Dude, here's a great analogy. Let's say you want advice on anything. Go out in the middle of a busy street. I'd say go to a mall. We don't really go to the mall anymore. Go to a place in your city where people sit around, a park or something, and say you want financial advice. Just say, hey, I want some financial advice. You will get a lot of advice. And the old saying is that free advice is worth every dollar you pay for it. So is free spiritual advice. And when you start saying, oh, I need help about my relationship, guess what's coming in and giving you advice? Typically not things that are experts on good relationships. I'm just saying. And then watch the video that I did the other day. What was that video called? I think it was called, what was that video called? Let me go back and see, because that was a good one, talking about you being your own Holy Spirit, you being your own advocate, you being your own comforter. What was that video called? I'm looking right now. Jesus or Dracula. That was so great. You got to watch that one too. I think it's in the Why Jesus and the Father Want in Your Heart. I think that's the one. No. It would be The Bible Shows You're Far More Empowered Than You Know. That's one you want to watch with the girl. Yay. That's the thumbnail. The Bible shows you're more empowered than you know. Listen to that one about finding and about where to get guidance from. That would be my advice for you there. And now, unfortunately, I probably lost my place. I did. I hate it when that happens. But let's see. The opiate of the masses. So it's not going to let me go all the way back to the beginning. Gary says the opiate of the masses. He's right. Various channels with folks programs saying Jesus is truth. Jesus is King of Kings. You said it. Programmed. That is the word. Thank you, Robert. Titus, Tracy's right. Titus was the King of Kings. Titus was the Lord of Lords. Waking up is hard to do. Absolutely. Blue Sky talks about Tammuz. There's at least 35, 40 of these beings born in December, born in mangers, born to stars, born with kings coming down on them, born to be saviors, born to die in the spring, born to die, born to raise from the dead. Remember, even Dracula died and rose from the dead. Ladies and gentlemen, let's see. Isn't it crazy and amazing that Rome still rules? Or do they? Maybe we'll talk about that. Winter Springs, Florida. Nice to see you. I grew up not too far from it. Your maker was an ET technician, angel number 22. I don't agree with you at all. I think they want us to believe that our maker was an ET technician. I don't buy it, Angel. I'm divine. I'm sovereign. I'm free. I wasn't made by no stinking ET. I just don't buy it. I wasn't. I won't accept it because I don't think there's evidence there for it. But if I did need some brushing up, if I was suffering from some injury, if I was suffering from some sickness, if I was suffering from the ravages of age and not treating myself very well for a long time, I would go to jeffreydaugherty.com and click on the Stem Light logo. That's our stem cell partner. Miraculous results from the stem cell treatments. And right next door, you'll see on the jeffreydaugherty.com is the Create Yourself Nutrition. Those are supplemental products that help mature, encourage, what's the right word? Empower, make healthy your existing adult stem cells. So if you go to StemLight, use the word heal. If you're a doctor and you want to be with the stem cell company that is the partner of the National Football League, the exclusive stem cell partner of the National Football League Alumni Association, go to southernstem.com and use the word heal. Great stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Would Fluffy help my migraine? I've seen it help migraines repeatedly. Do you have one? Grab it and see. And it is promoted by a veteran. Yes, let's see. Now if we could have one Mistech. Oh, now see, Robert has a Mistech band on each wrist. And he's walking upright and not sideways. How about that? Boom, I like it. I like it. Jennifer says, like any violent relationship, the victim tries to hold on for dear life before they let go. Very profound, Jennifer. Very profound. Let's see what else we got here. Jeff, you're like the teacher I never had. Thank you, Xavier. I appreciate it. Let's see. Jeff gives me lots of good material to use on people. That's what I'm here for, Joe. That's what I'm here for, Joe. Jeff, have you lost faith in humankind? Of course not. I need to go back to my maiden char. Okay, Char, you do that. Did female really get pulled from male? No, they were created at the same time, in my humble opinion. Can you share your thoughts on Richard Carrier brand mysticism? No, because I don't know who that is. Sorry. I don't know. They weren't people, and that music is about masculine. Anyway, Tracy, aren't you the savior, Jeff? Yeah, that's what I hear. No, if you're looking for me to save you, you are in heap big trouble. Little Native American lingo for you there. I know that's bad. I shouldn't say that. But there it is, ladies and gentlemen. So now we know, I think, and we will continue to prove that Jesus was invented by Rome and that Christ is Caesar's Messiah. For even more information on this, continue to watch this channel. And ladies and gentlemen, tune in on Monday for the third appearance on this channel of Joseph Atwill, the author of Caesar's Messiah. What's up with the tie with the Romans reinventing Jesus' blood sacrifice in the Matrix reincarnation wheel? Don't know that the Romans invented the Jesus blood sacrifice. We're going to get to that. Interesting stuff. You're asking the right questions. You're thinking in the right direction. And really, just thinking is a step ahead of just believing. Think for yourself. Take the time to think instead of just believe. Oh, that's a great catchphrase right there. It's a great catchphrase. Well, folks, I tell you what, Emperor, you tell that on your channel, and I'll tell mine on my channel. How about that? We do appreciate you being here, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's already ending, Eric. We do appreciate you, ladies and gentlemen. I salute you all for being here, seeking after truth. I have a deep respect and honor for each and every one of you that's here, even for the trolls, because if it weren't for trolls, then everything would just be too easy. And I need to have some resistance in my life in order to be all that I can be. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't believe them. Things aren't bad and getting worse. Things are good and getting better. Subscribe while you're here. Even if you think you're subscribed, check and make sure you're still subscribed, because people have been unsubscribed. And remember, you are divine. You are sovereign. You are free. Remember, you don't have original sin. You've got the spark of divinity within, ladies and gentlemen. I promise you, you do. I promise you, you do. History is written by the winners. I'm looking at 40,000 plus winners. So I know that we can win today and write a better tomorrow. I got to think of a really good sign-off phrase. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you. And we will be back maybe today with some more podcast excellence, but certainly tomorrow. Got to get the drone out, get that thing warmed up. It's going to be some great stuff. And I am telling you, folks, if you think it's been good up to now, wait, just wait. It's getting so much better. So much better. More information, more revelation. I just cannot wait. So there's no reason for us to keep hanging around here. We got a lot to do. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. Thanks for joining me here on the channel. I salute you for being here, seeking after truth. We're good. We're getting gooder. Remember, the one rule about Fight Club was don't tell anyone about Fight Club. This is Cousins Club, and our rule is tell everyone about Cousins Club, because we're in the life-changing business, and Cousins, that business is a booming.